Welcome to an all-new episode of the Baseball Insiders. This time, it's going to be an episode primarily about what the hell just happened to the New York Mets in October. And we're also going to talk about other things as well, as including our playoff predictions, which are already kind of off the rails. Robert Murray joining me as always. Welcome to the show. What a wild card weekend.
Our predictions could not have gone any worse than they actually did, Adam.
Terrible.
And also, nice to see you, by the way. I feel like I should have led with that, but nice to see you as always, man.
Nice to see you. I didn't, in the tweet announcing the stream, I didn't even mention hey, come, we're going to talk about our bad predictions because the show is called the Baseball Insiders and the predictions are supposed to be good, like inside good. But first, the wild card series threw us both for a loop.
That, as I said, we couldn't have done worse, man. I'll tell you, I did not give enough credit, or actually we didn't give enough credit to just how good the Mariners and the Padres are. And ever since those two teams won the series, I've had people around baseball, whether it's executives, agents, or scouts, or even other players, have all said these two teams should not be overlooked. We can even say the same thing about the Philadelphia Phillies too, man. Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing it right now with what they're doing to the Braves. They got to Max Fried early. Nick Castellanos is doing his thing. I'll tell you, if he gets hot, boy, that lineup becomes even more dangerous. So we're, I'll tell you, gotta love playoff baseball, man. It's so unpredictable.
I loved every second of it, especially the seconds of it where the Toronto Blue Jays had an historic collapse, the largest single game playoff collapse in baseball history at home. Second biggest comeback ever behind the 1929 World Series of Philadelphia A's. I'm sure all of our watchers remember that game vividly.
Yeah,
that was a big one, but this was basically, I mean, if you're going to pick a second big comeback, this was obviously the one. I believe that I said we both picked the Jays. I think I said Jays, and it's not even close. Not sure why I said that. Not true. It was, in fact, not close when the Mariners swept. We both gave the Mets the edge. We both gave the Cardinals the edge over the Phillies, although I cautioned everybody. I wondered if we were, giving St. Louis a little too much credit based on their rotation and the fact that, I don't know, Miles Michaelis, I don't know, Jose Quintana, are we sure the Phillies aren't going to make a little run at this? But it was just a little question. I still picked the Cardinals and they lost. But we were right about the Guardians. Shout out to us.
Well, one right. Look at us go, Adam. We're 1 for 4. Or are we 2 for 4? Are we 1 for 4?
I think we're 1 for 4. But the scrappy young Guardians head into Yankee Stadium tonight to face the Bronx Bombers. That series could go one of two ways. It's a coin flip. We'll get to predicting our next couple of DS series by the end of this episode. Of course, I mean, the things we were wrong about in the wild card round, St. Louis being dangerous to move on. Instead, it was sort of a Yachty and Pujols little an exhale, a sigh, rather than a big old last gasp. Blue Jays and Mariners blow out in the wrong direction. And most importantly, perhaps the Mets rotation dominating the Padres, which not only did the Mets lose this series in 3, they took the middle game behind Jacob deGrom, but that rotation did not do much of anything. Max Scherzer, I think, became the first pitcher in playoff history to allow 7 runs and 4 homers in a game. He's basically never done that in his life. Chris Bassett's potential final start in Queens for the Mets at Citi Field did not go well either. Didn't get to the 5th. Very confusing series where maybe if you picked the Padres to prevail, maybe you're saying all right, tight games, Darvish and Musgrove step up, and there's a late Manny Machado homer, some fireworks, some heroics. No, the Padres just kind of beat the hell out of the Mets in both games 1 and 3. And this is going to be an offseason full of questions for that team. What do you think went wrong here to start?
Yeah, I mean, at first you got to mention Max Scherzer and that start that he had. And there's no way that he was close to 100% healthy. Because, I mean, him allowing 4 home runs, he wasn't using his cutter much. And that's a pretty telltale sign because he hurt his oblique throwing that cutter. And the fact he stayed away from it, I thought, was telling. And the fact that in game 3, they could not hit Joe Musgrove. And we saw the ear situation with Buck Showalter and checking out Musgrove's ear. That was, and there was even, I can't remember who the reporter was, but it was somebody in the New York market who ended up saying that he talked to 2 current or former major league pitchers who said that Buck Showalter should have actually done that earlier. I thought that was pretty interesting. So it kind of gives some validity behind Buck Showalter's thoughts. But like the Mets, they did not have their star players perform or step up in the biggest situations. It started with Scherzer, and then in the last game it was the offense, and they could not overcome that. And it leads into an offseason full of questions for them. Leads with Jacob deGrom, goes with Chris Bassett, Brandon Nimmo. They got a bunch of free agents on that roster. I am very intrigued to see what exactly they do here. We've mentioned the scenario plenty of times of deGrom potentially leaving, and then that opening up the door for a Verlander or Aaron Judge situation. I don't know. I'll tell you, like, there is a shot that deGrom leaves. Like, I think everybody can agree with that because he's planning on opting out of his contract, and free agency can provide a lot of different obstacles. I'm still of the belief that he's going to stay. But I think John Heyman of the New York Post made a really good point in that the Mets cannot get stupid about offering deGrom whatever. They can't offer him a blank check because that's going to ruin their flexibility in the future. And to address other holes in the roster because they're going to lose some of these players. They're not going to be able to keep everybody. And there's also a comment here from Joshua Waldick. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but if that's the case, I'm sorry, Joshua. But Bert, please tell me that David Stearns will not leave Milwaukee. And that kind of leads me into my Mets point is this series, the fact that the Mets lost it opens up the door for some potentially big changes. And Billy Epler, from everything I've gathered, he's safe. Same with Buck Showalter. And I think both of them deserve to stay. But there is a chance that the Mets try to get somebody to go above Billy Epler. And obviously the name connected to them has been Stearns. I would be surprised if Stearns left Milwaukee from everything that I've gathered. That is, like, Stearns is very comfortable in Milwaukee. He's got a good situation there, an owner who supports him. Obviously, he grew up in New York, so I'm sure he'd be entertained by it. But right now, things can change, of course. But I would be surprised if Stearns left Milwaukee.
They're saying all the right things about Buck being safe, about Epler being safe. I think you raise a really interesting point about potentially elevating somebody over Epler. Because as much as I think Met fans wanted to deny it, and as much as us pundits wanted to act like everything was hunky-dory for this 101-win team, they did not have a trade deadline that was very commensurate with the ability of the team overall. They did not get the big bat, and they told us that they didn't need the big bat. They told us they could string together singles, and they told us, we've done it all year. It's been this magical formula. Well, nothing against Musgrove, nothing against Darvish. No power, out-homered in spades by the Padres, not even close. And so the deadline it was a real concern. It's not like the bullpen really let them down, but they have a lead in the 7th inning of game 2.
Yep.
And Buck is going, can I use Edwin Diaz for 9 outs tonight? Doesn't want to go to Ottavino, doesn't want to go to Drew Smith, doesn't want to go to really anybody other than Timmy Trumpet's best friend himself, Edwin Diaz. So he comes in the 7th. They rally. He stays in the 8th for a little bit. They finally take him out. Ottavino comes in the 9th and struggles. So Buck was right because there really weren't any trustworthy names out there. So I think Epler needs to come under fire here. And you're right. The Buck Showalter stuff, sort of an overrated resume. Now 10-16 in the playoffs. No games won in the championship series in either the NL or AL. And he's trending downward there. But then again, he came under a lot of fire, not for his previous resume or for playoff failures. He was sort of under the microscope for the ear check, mostly. The Musgrove moment. Was the 6th inning the right time to do it? Can you ever disrespect somebody like that? Michael Wilbon on PTI yesterday said Musgrove should have fired a fastball into the dugout, and he hopes Buck Showalter never wins a game again. I thought that was a jarring reaction. What was your take on that situation? Because I honestly didn't have a problem with it either way. I saw the spin rates rising like everybody else. I saw the screenshots. I don't think you should be managing the dugout based off Twitter screenshots, but there was reason to be suspicious there. The umpires didn't want to react to it. It's tough to react to it in such a high-profile game in a moment, but I didn't think it was the wildest thing for him to accuse Musgrove of. A lot of people seem to think this was crossing a significant line. I wonder where you land here.
Yeah, like for me, if you're going to accuse somebody of something like that, you can't miss.
Yeah.
And obviously, he missed because the umpires did not find anything suspicious in his ear. But that being said, he had probable cause. The spin rate was clearly much higher than it was. Like it was clear that he had something shiny on his ear. So it's not like he was basing it off of just like gut. I mean, he had he had probable cause. Um, and obviously he was wrong. So, I mean, I obviously covered both sides of the argument here. So I'm playing Switzerland. But that being said, like I think I'm okay with it. I'm honestly okay with it, especially like if your season's on the line and you don't like. I think you got to check because that was a pretty crucial game. So I don't have any issue with it. But yeah, I know a bunch of different people didn't. I mean, everybody's got the right to an opinion, but Twitter was going pretty bananas.
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with it. It obviously was meant to evoke another firestorm. He didn't do it, just for the game to, he wanted to create a distraction. He wanted to create a situation, and it did not motivate the Mets in the way that it maybe should have. Let's talk the Mets free agents specifically, because we think it seems like Bucket's safe, seems like Epler's safe. Maybe someone comes in over his head, but they're coming back. Steve Cohen is the number one spender in the universe, but that doesn't mean this whole core is coming back as is. I'm not sure if you even want to run this team back based on what we just saw. Clear weaknesses, the back end of the rotation, maybe the front end of the rotation, certainly the bullpen and the power sources. So in addition to DeGrom, you've got Brandon Nimmo's a free agent. Chris Bassett's got a mutual option. Edwin Diaz, their superstar closer, is a free agent. Taijuan Walker could be gone. DeGrom, of course. Are there any of these guys who you would say are safe, or any of these guys who you would say are certainly out?
I wouldn't rule any of them out. If I was the Mets, I would prioritize both DeGrom and Edwin Diaz. And like that, we can kind of get into some questions that are like Mets related into the comments here.
Yeah.
I would prioritize those two guys. I also think Brandon Nimmo is going to have a relatively strong market because I think he's he's a very good player, and he's one of the more clear-cut like options for outfielder that are going to be available. So he might end up getting priced out of the Mets range. But for a guy like Edwin Diaz, this is going to be an unprecedented deal for a closer. Like we're probably looking around the $100 million mark. And when's the last time a closer's been there? Has there ever been a closer that's gotten 100 million? Like that's the kind of conversation we're having with Edwin Diaz now.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen if the Mets are willing to do that or if they prefer to use their resources in different places. And regarding Jacob deGrom, like that deal to me, we've talked about this before. Max Scherzer got 3 years. I would imagine deGrom gets 3 to 5 years in that range for an AAV that's going to be over Scherzer. So that's going to be another very expensive contract. Like there's plenty of teams here who like I'm going all in right now.
Yeah.
DeGrom. Obviously, the Mets, they're going to be in play. I thought the Braves might be just because they needed the rotation. They at one point they needed help in the rotation because they had Charlie Morton as a free agent for next year. But after signing Morton and then getting Strider done, I don't know if that's going to end up being their big move. I'm telling you, like, I would not rule the Braves out in a scenario in which they don't sign Dansby Swanson. I could see them trying to get a guy like Trey Turner. I think with what they've done with extensions for Austin Riley, for Michael Harris, for Spencer Strider, what it does is it obviously signs these guys long term, but it gives them flexibility because they're getting these guys at deals that are going to be cheaper than they were in 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years from now. And that could end up leading to a guy like Trey Turner. And I had somebody today who's been exploring that market. Like he believes that Turner is going to get between Lindor and Corey Seager's AAV, and that is going to be. I mean, that's a pretty hefty deal. Like this person predicted the biggest offseason deals are 1, Carlos Correa, 2, Trey Turner, 3, Aaron Judge. That's how he went. So we'll see how that goes and see if his predictions are right. But like, I mean, yeah, we're already in the offseason market here, so let's get weird. I gotta love
it. And let's talk Braves a little bit, and then we can pivot to some of these questions as well. I think this is all one big spider web. The Braves sort of blew up our expectations this week too. Everyone's got their eyes on the Red Sox. Oh, are they going to extend Devers? What about Bogaerts? Going to opt out of? And then the Braves were just like, yeah, we're in the playoffs, and we're still going to extend Spencer Strider out of nowhere. Alex Anthopoulos taking care of another young, like there was a young player he hadn't taken care of yet. Goes ahead and takes care of him during a week of pre-DS prep time. I don't think anybody. I certainly did not see that coming. But it's another one, and it's another cheap deal long term. The Braves have this absurd core locked up for an extremely long time. Is that though signaling? You hinted at this by saying, wouldn't be shocked if they do trade Turner. Obviously, they got money lying around. Is this sort of signaling, since Dansby is the only guy who doesn't have a below market extension, that he could be gone at the end of the season? Or is it just signaling they know he's worth big money and they're going to give it to either him or Trey Turner?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm not going to rule out Dansby Swanson returning to the Braves just because those two sides have been talking and there's clear mutual interest. There's obviously going to be hurdles because I mean this is a big dollar extension, and also you got to remember that Swanson is represented by Casey Close, who is obviously Freddie Freeman's former agency, and and it's as they've continued these negotiations, the price tag for a guy like Swanson has gone up. Like there's people who predicted that the extension would look in anywhere from like the 6 years to about 120 to 140 million. That price tag has probably gone up. So it's the Braves are gonna have to choose between that kind of deal or going after a guy like Trey Turner, who to me is a top 2 shortstop in baseball. I think he's going to age pretty gracefully too. So I think the Braves are going to have to look at that as well, but it's just it's another offseason decision that Anthopoulos is going to have to make if it extends to the offseason, and it might get uncomfortable because last year, obviously they had to choose between Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson, and the Braves could now have to choose between Dansby Swanson, Trey Turner, or any of the other shortstops who are going to be available out there. So it should be another fun offseason in Atlanta.
Casey Close is involved again. Doug Gottlieb, get your Twitter fingers ready. I promised I wouldn't mention it again, and so I broke my own promise, but now I certainly won't. I pledge.
How can we trust you, Adam?
You really – hey, listeners, viewers, Robert, you can all trust me. I'm just trying to land the ship. Am I going to make a few mistakes along the way? Obviously, who among us hasn't? But I certainly don't want to mention that agency flop ever again. Why are the Braves the only team that does this? Why can't any other MLB teams figure this out? It's not like the Braves are payroll strapped. It's not like they're not the Rays. They're not operating on a shoestring. Why can't the Yankees do this with the why isn't Oswaldo Cabrera locked down? Why don't the Red Sox do this with Devers and Bogaerts and Tristan Casas even midway through next season? Why is it that only the Braves have figured out that in order to own the future power rankings, when you bring up young talent, you have like a year where you can just get them locked down and done with? And why isn't anybody else copying this method that obviously works?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that answer out, and it's a complicated question and answer too. And the only real thing that I've been able to come up with so far is that these players in Atlanta just really want to be there. Like a lot of them grew up in that area. And I'm not saying like those players from the Red Sox or Yankees don't want to be there, because that's not what I'm saying at all. But the Braves have the homegrown factor. Like they did it with Michael Harris. They did it with Austin Riley. Granted, those two got a combined $300 million. So, I mean, it's not like they're getting totally shortchanged, but like, I mean, Harris could be like $100 million player in the future. But like it comes down to geography. It comes down to other factors that I can't exactly get into right now. And Anthopoulos has taken advantage. You know what? He's done a very, very, very good job, and he's gotten an absolute heaping amount of praise behind the scenes for it. Yeah, the Braves, they have a core that not many teams can really compete with. I will say this though, if we're talking about a long-term core of young players that is really intriguing besides the Braves, I'm looking at the Baltimore Orioles, man. They got things going on in Baltimore. And that's also another one that these rival teams are wondering if they could spend big. And I also wonder if a guy like Carlos Correa, who of course Mike Elias knows from Houston, could be in play there.
Yeah. The Astros energy is huge there. And for the people who are only just realizing this now, because they scratched the surface with Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, there's a lot more where that came from. Grayson Rodriguez by early next season, Colton Cowser, Jackson Holiday, Heston Kjerstad is killing it in the Arizona Fall League right now.
Dude, yep.
Yeah. Position player core, a lot of dudes. Dean Kramer was great this year. DL Hall, like more arms than you're thinking. That was the major criticism of the O's for a while. It's like, I'm not sure where the pitching comes from. Now I'm starting to see it a little bit, and there's more offense that you can even account for.
Yeah, it's freaking impressive, man. And I've been able to like talk to people who are out in Arizona right now because basically everybody in baseball is flocking out here to go see their guys or like going to watch different players from different teams, and been able to hear different opinions, and everybody's just been raving about the Baltimore Orioles. And I'll also tell you, there was one game I was at the other day, and it was Kumar Rocker, and his command was relatively shaky. I had some people were buzzing about that at the game there, so I'm kind of curious if that means anything. Maybe it's just nerves or whatnot, but like his command was a little all over the place.
Yeah, I only got the reports from afar, but I saw, I believe, one swing and miss, which obviously is not the number that you're looking for.
No, that's I think it was Joe Girardi said it's not what you want.
Yeah, Joe G, who's having a rough 2022, by the way, because his Philadelphia Phillies, who couldn't string 2 hits together without him, are up 7-3 on the Braves in game 1 of the DS on the road. Sorry to Joe. That's also not what you want. Let's just do a couple questions real quick before we move on. I know we want to talk about the Giants and got to get into the upcoming series a little bit. But I don't want to move past Ryan last name. I assume that is Ryan. Is that your real last name? Did ask about the Red Sox and Xander Bogaerts because we did get into that. And I know the two sides were talking already. Rumor had it they weren't talking for much of the season, but had met a few times in the final weeks of the season. Bogaerts was going to go to Aruba and then get his bearings and come back at it. Who knows if he's going to opt out or not? He probably will. Who knows if he is going to return to the Red Sox? He's not ruling them out. They have to come play at his ballpark, though. He's not going to go down and give him a hometown discount. Ryan's asking if they're going to offer him more than like a 5-year, $150 million deal. And if you've heard any news there, I feel like a 5-year, $150 million deal would maybe get that done. But I don't know if you're hearing different figures.
Yeah, I admittedly have not heard figures, so I don't want to pretend like I know what's going on there. But I will say this is that there was obviously the reports are out there that the Red Sox offered Bogaerts 1 year before the season, and that went over like a lead balloon. That was not good, and that was clearly not going to get a deal done. And that was more of a slap in the face than anything. And Bogaerts' agent obviously is Scott Boras. I think I want to start talking. I want to make sure about that before I get into this next thought.
I believe that's right, though. The Bogaerts situation is interesting to me, especially because, yes, he still does represent Xander Bogaerts. The 1 year, like, does the 1 year slap in the face outweigh the love for the organization from before that? Because that's really a make or break.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't think it would impact the love that he has for the organization. And ultimately, baseball, like I feel like this gets lost a lot. Baseball is a business, and you want to maximize your value. And that 1 year for I think it was $30 million or something in that range. Like I can't remember what Heyman exactly reported there. That wasn't going to get a deal done. And Boras, he's going to want to get his player to free agency. He's going to want them to establish their value on the open market. And he's going to want top dollar. And whether that comes from Boston or a different team remains to be seen. But there is a real shot that Bogaerts leaves. And that obviously is not what if the Red Sox had it their way, I don't think that's exactly how it would go. But there's a lot of, the offseason hasn't even started. So like things can change, obviously, at the drop of a hat. But that, if I was a Red Sox, I'd prioritize Bogaerts for sure.
Yeah, as would I, whatever the cost, because it's going to be lower than some others. And also, just to clear up some loose ends here, we've got a lot of endless Mets fans in the comments asking about potential Mets bats. I'm seeing, Rhoda Costello, what bat are the Mets going to be interested in? John Franchini, José Abreu a fit. I'm also seeing our Brian asking about Jock Peterson. The Mets obviously lacked for thump this year, but they have a lot of questions to answer in their own backyard. Who are the bats that you maybe see them targeting this offseason?
Yeah, I really like the José Abreu you mentioned. It's not because I've heard any inside information on that one, but it comes from a multitude of different factors. Is that the White Sox are going to have to make a decision on José Abreu because they have Gavin Sheets and Andrew Vaughn who can fill into that spot, and they've also been playing out of position in the outfield, so Abreu can be at first base. And also the Mets, they've really struggled at first base and DH this year, and that would be where Abreu would fit in. And I think that would be a seamless fit for him. I think that'd be a very strong addition on a short-term, like 1 or 2 year deal. So I would not I could definitely see that for sure. But that's me more speculating than anything. But I'll be able to give you more names in the coming weeks. Like I'm slowly starting to get an idea of what the market's going to look like. So we'll have plenty for you if you tune into the Baseball Insiders, and also subscribe too. That's always important too. So thank you.
Yeah, trust us, Mets fans, army who've shown up in the mentions here. When the offseason begins in earnest, we will have the names for you. We'll be on top of all the rumors as long as you subscribe and watch and tune in and listen to the Baseball Insiders twice weekly, Mondays and Thursdays, 3:30 Eastern time. We'll be right here feeding you all the information you could possibly need. Want to pivot real quick to the San Francisco Giants because not only are they going to be a major factor this offseason, we all know the Aaron Judge chase, they're going to be a part of that. There was a rumor from Buster Olney they're prepared to outbid the Yankees. If they do that, congratulations on signing Aaron Judge. Really could happen. There was a rumor this weekend that they wanted Trey Turner too. That was another chase. And the man who's going to be behind that is Astros assistant GM Pete Patella, who is now they're going to be their GM under Farhan Zaidi. You wanted to talk about him specifically. I feel like you have some insight on this process, on this man. I'm wondering how that's going to sort of impact these really high-profile free agency chases, because you and I have both said, hey, there's a lack of star power there. That team is all side dishes, no meat, and maybe with so many potentially impactful options, including a hometown boy and Aaron Judge, this could be the offseason where they pivot a little bit. Now Patel is the guy who's going to have to do that. So what are you hearing about him?
I have heard for the last couple of years that this guy is an absolute rock star, and that he was a key cog in what the Astros are doing in Houston. And losing him is a pretty massive blow. And it also, I don't think the Giants could have done better in replacing Scott Harris. Scott Harris was viewed as a legit, very good executive, and losing him to Detroit was obviously a blow. But getting Pete Patella was a very strong move by Farhan Zaidi. And even Patella, he ended up he was a finalist for their job when they ended up hiring Scott Harris. So the Giants are plenty familiar with him, and I think it's just a very strong move for San Francisco. That's the only way I can really describe it from my discussions with rival teams, is people who have dealt with him, people who have worked with him, absolutely rave about him. And it would not surprise me if he went on the Scott Harris path, where in a couple of years he became some team's president of baseball operations. He's that highly thought of in baseball.
And the further you get away from 2017, the more people start to just remember and realize that what the Astros have built here is unbelievably effective and sustainable. This might have been their best season ever. So without Carlos Correa, so far removed from that scandal, there will be people who never forgive them, but there will also be people who are able to step back and go, how do they persevere through, so much self-created scandal tornado that could have brought down any other team? They posted the best rotation-wide ERA basically in the live ball era this year, 2.90 across the rotation in general. Justin Verlander is struggling right now with the Seattle Mariners, but that doesn't take away from their season whatsoever. They're an undeniable machine. They're the favorites in the AL once again. All they do is go to championship series. Usually they go to World Series. And so if you can get your hands on somebody who's responsible for creating that, you probably should do it.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I have a few thoughts as you say that. One, it starts with the Mariners. Big Dumper is the best nickname in baseball.
Maybe ever.
Yeah, I mean, can't go wrong. Although I will say this, I'm going to give an NFL comment for a second. There was a guy named Terrence Knight, and he was a defensive tackle for the Broncos. His nickname was Pot Roast. And it was my favorite nickname ever as a kid. Like I wanted to get the guy's jersey because I love the nickname so much. But going back into baseball, I can't believe I just dabbled in the NFL game. Stacking the box, Matt Verderame, if you need me, I'm right here, baby.
Arrowhead Addict, we are on concurrently. You could be watching both right now if you wanted to.
We should. Yeah, I'm tuned in. I'm not actually tuned in right now.
I'm not tuned in.
Baseball
Sorry.
Insiders.
Yeah,
but,
I'm on a podcast right now.
Yeah, and you said what the Astros have done has been really impressive, and you're not wrong. Like, I mean, it's extremely impressive because losing Correa and George Springer and actually getting better, like that should not be a thing. But it also makes it really confusing that there's been reports that there's tension between James Click and ownership in Houston, and that Click and Dusty Baker might not return. Like that, to me, would be a really bad move. Like James Click would get hired in an instant. Like some team would name him their lead executive or in a prominent baseball role quickly. So I think that would certainly be a mistake. I can't say I have not independently heard those things, not because like I'm not saying it's not true, but I just want to make sure that's not my information. It's other reporters' information. And also the fact that the Astros have done this without Brett Strom, who's now in Arizona. Like Brett Strom is regarded as the best pitching coach in baseball. It's so improbable, man. Like it's genuinely like so freaking impressive what they've done. And it's a credit to that operation because they got themselves something that most teams dream of having.
Yeah, it's the Patriots. You wait for that brain drain, and then you're just like, who are these other guys, and why is this still working? And not to do stack in the box here on this feed, but that was 20 full years. Superstars came, superstars went, players' talent was maximized, etc. The Astros are in the ALCS every single year. They're in the World Series most years. The executives were stripped from the team. Players were sent away. Did not matter. And so, yeah, if James Click does leave, and if Dusty Baker leaves with or without a championship, I think we all kind of secretly we wouldn't hate seeing Dusty cap his Hall of Fame case with a title. But then there's the Astros factor of it all. And so if he does leave with a ring this year, that maybe changes the equation. If he leaves without a ring, a lot up for discussion still. But yes, you're right. It'd be foolish for them to sort of make a clean break there. Before we wrap, I feel like we got to talk about the series that are upcoming. I don't know how we can't. Obviously, we got the first group extremely wrong. I don't want to repeat that again. I'd love to get these right. But we're left with remember when you used to have no division rivalries before the AL and NLCS, and it was kind of weird. It led to reseeding and all that stuff. That is no longer the case. These 4 division series are 3 division rivalries, and the Yankees and Guardians, who got in a trash throwing brawl earlier this year when Miles Straw tried to climb into the stands at Yankee Stadium. So there's bad blood between all 4 of these teams, all 8 that are matched up. And specifically, you've got the Dodgers and Padres know each other really well at this point. The Astros and Mariners. The Mariners have not been a prominent AL West rival for a while, but certainly the teams are familiar with each other. And the Braves and Phillies. Now, I don't know if you feel like we learned anything in the first weekend that will make you change your pick here, that will make you move someone from wild card weekend into the CS that you might not have considered otherwise. The Braves are currently losing game 1 of the Phillies. I don't think any of us are counting them out. The Mariners are currently up on the Astros. Again, not sure we're going to make a grand declaration from game 1. But do you foresee any of the wild card weekend winners potentially moving on and advancing here?
I do. And I mean, you can make a case for a lot of these teams. Like the Mariners are a really sexy pick right now. And I talked to somebody earlier today who he asked me for my World Series pick, and I stuck with my guns. I said Astros over Braves, and he said I'm going to go unconventional here. I'm going to go Braves Mariners, and it was like, ooh, that's kind of like it's pretty juicy. I don't have the same gonads as that guy, so give me the Astros in that series. I think the Guardians have a very strong case to potentially beating the Yankees. I could see an upset there for sure, like especially with the Yankees' bullpen issues. I want to get your take on that in a little bit, but I have the Guardians beating the Yankees. I kind of have a feeling an upset's going to happen there. Give me the Braves over the Phillies, but I think that series is going to be relatively close. And then give me the Dodgers over the Padres. So like that's currently where I'm at, but I'm curious what you think and also your take on the Yankees' bullpen situation here.
Yeah, it's tough because I don't want to go chalk. I don't see how I can't pick the Dodgers over the Padres. The Dodgers went 14-5 against the Padres this year. Game 1 is going to be started by Mike Clevinger, who's got a 9.69 ERA and 3 starts against the Dodgers this season. Very nice. Arguably too nice. But that's not the foot that you want to start on there. Say what you will about the boom or bust Dodgers offense. I think it's hard to pick against them for that Game 1 at least, and I think the Dodgers probably win that in 4. I think Braves in 5, but you could talk me into the Phillies. I think the winner of that series goes to the World Series. I think the Astros in 4. I think the Mariners are showing them that they're not to be taken lightly, but again, I think we'll all learn more about that as the series drags on. And yeah, I too struggle to make a pick on Yankees Guardians. I would like to pick the Yankees, and I would like to pick them in 5, but I would not be at all shocked if the Guardians upset them. I think the series is much more of a coin flip than people are claiming it is. I think that the Yankees went 5-1 against the Guardians this year and outscored them 38-14, and that's all well and good. Those games came in April and July. None of them featured Shane Bieber. The only one the Yankees lost was a Tristan McKenzie gem at the tail end of those 6 games. They're facing Bieber in Game 2. Might get rained out on Thursday, which would give them even more rest, and they could line Bieber McKenzie up back-to-back on Friday and Saturday. Cal Quantrill, we did a stats quiz with him last episode where it was like, who is this weirdo who's 16-6 in 180 innings? It's Cal Quantrill. He starts tonight. Garrett Cole, since July 4th, has a 3.96 ERA or 3.94. It's right up there. It's not what you want. Yankees are 9-8 in his starts since that date. He is someone who gave all the right quotes recently about accepting the pressure. He's a born Yankee fan. I don't think anyone says he doesn't bring the right energy, but this is his first home playoff start in the Bronx in 3 years. 2020 was his first season here. They played their home games in San Diego. 2021 hobbled entering the wild card game, goes on the road at Fenway, loses. He's saying all the right things, but we've watched him unravel a good deal this season. I wouldn't be shocked if he throws 7 one-run innings with 11 Ks. I also wouldn't be shocked if he gives up a 2-run homer to Jose Ramirez in the first inning. So I am picking the Yankees in the series, but I think it's going to be on tenterhooks the whole time. I think they're going to have to get to Bieber if they win this, because I don't think they're getting to McKenzie in Game 3 on the road. I think anything can happen, and I think the bullpen is extremely interesting to dive deeper into, like you said. You look at the pitchers they're carrying. It's 12 guys. There's not a name in there that stuns you. They've carried Tyler Lyons in the past. They've fallen in love with random guys in September and then brought them on at the back end of the bullpen. Miguel Castro is the guy who made it instead of Scott Efros, who is going down with surprise Tommy John surgery. That means the Yankees traded for Andrew Benintendi, Frankie Montas, and Scott Efros at the deadline, and none of them are going to play in October. Unless Montas makes it back for the CS or Benintendi makes it back for the CS, but nobody in the first round. But the names in the bullpen, it's unsettled. No Marinaccio. Ron Marinaccio went out last week. No Efros. But there's not a name in there that blows you away and says that guy can't appear in October games. Or, there's not a set 9th inning guy, but there's no one who absolutely does not belong. Domingo Germán is going to get relief innings. He's been good. Clark Schmidt has been a bulk guy. He's been very good. Jameson Taillon is going to be in the bullpen for this series. And you want to talk about the Yankees maybe following the 2019 Nats or 2018 Red Sox path and using a starter out of the bullpen to close out big moments. It might be Luis Severino on a throw day moving forward. It's going to be Taillon immediately in the division series. Like Zach Eflin is doing it for the Phillies. Taillon's best pitch is his fastball, 95, 96 up in the zone. Maybe the stuff ticks up now. It took a lot of extenuating circumstances and some real Aroldis Chapman mess to get here. But the Yankees might finally be employing a strategy that has worked for 2 of the past 4 World Series champions. I'm weirdly less worried about the bullpen than I was this morning. I still think the series is extremely close. And I think anyone discounting the Guardians just because their offense didn't do anything against Tyler Glasnow and Shane McClanahan should probably reevaluate things. I'm picking the Yankees to win, but if they could lose in 3, right? This game really is just going to pivot on a couple of moments in a couple of really tight games. They don't play blowouts. The Yankees have only lost 7 games this year by 5 or more runs. They don't lose blowouts. They play tight ones. They're going to do it again all series long. It's a team with really nasty pitching. That is 26-6 in their last 32, not the team they dominated in April and July.
Yep. I think everything you just outlined with this entire series, totally fair. But I still have the Guardians at 5, so I apologize for that. But
I get it. I was this close to picking it. I couldn't quite do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're a Yankees guy. I mean, I can't fault you for that. But like, it's that to me. I mean, I was about to call that the series of the week, but like also Dodgers Padres is a freaking good one too. Like every single one of these series is freaking good. Like in the divisional round too, Adam. Like, boy, oh boy, yeah, I'll tell you, I am. Hype City, USA, population bird over here.
Hey, let me pass the city lines. I'm into it too. I'm hype. The Dodgers going 14-5 is the only real blowout of the division rivals here. The Astros went 12-7 on the Mariners, but had a +8 run differential. You're not going to see 19 closer games overall, especially where somebody goes 12-7. And the Phillies Braves, that was 11-8 Braves, but 2 4-game splits. The Braves swept a 3-game series in September in Atlanta, and that was the difference in the season series. So anything can happen in any of these, as evidenced by Bryce Harper bunting, the Phillies rallying, and the Phillies being the team in the first round that benefited from the bullpen meltdown. How is that possible? But it was.
That was it, like the exact opposite of what we ended up talking about on our previous show. I said the Phillies bullpen, while they were better, could end up like being the reason why they lose in that opening series. And then lo and behold, I have a giant egg in my face. And I also just looked, and the Mariners are currently beating the Astros 4-0 in the
4-0.
Like, hopefully nobody was watching this and then taping the game. Otherwise, like that would end up being. I would apologize for that now. But
I'm sorry, folks. Yeah.
And then also 7-3 for the Phillies. Like, holy smokes, Adam! Baseball playoffs. Yeah, he just summed it up perfectly without even saying any words.
I'm looking up the box score from game 2, the Phillies Cardinals game 2, just because I want to make sure I get this right. This did happen. Seranthony Dominguez, who had an 11.30 ERA in September after coming back from injury, was brought in the bottom of the 8th. Alvarado got Edman, walk, Nootbaar. Dominguez comes in, Pujols singles. First and second, 1 out against, again, a guy with an 11.37 ERA. Strikes out Paul Goldschmidt, strikes out Nolan Arenado. Sends the Phillies to the 9th. I mean, that's playoff baseball. That's why you want to talk about we can harp on our own predictions all we want, but hey, maybe they were so wrong because people with 11.37 ERAs are coming in and striking out the heart of the Cardinals order. Maybe we were so wrong. We were actually right. Did we just blow your mind?
I mean, my mind is all mashed potatoes right now trying to decipher that. But
we were wrong. We were wrong.
Oh yeah, we could have been more wrong if we tried. I'll tell you, that's why basically every prediction we just gave you, go with the exact opposite. That's well, I don't actually do that because
don't have faith in us. Have faith in us until the championship series. Those 111 win Dodgers, not enough people picking them for the fact that they are historically good at winning baseball games. But we're going to have to see it. A lot of little brother chirping at the Padres this past couple weeks, past couple months, past couple years. Pods have never been hotter. Got to do it one more time. If you don't do it now, no one's going to remember that you were 14-5 against them in the regular season. Braves can't defend their title against the under 90 win Phillies. No one's going to remember what you did in the regular season. No one's going to remember that 14-game winning streak. Yankees lose to the Guardians. We can tell you it's a coin flip all we want, but if they lose a series to a Cleveland Guardians team that's the youngest in baseball and nobody's picking, they're going to get clowned on. Nobody's going to say, well, that was a coin flip all along, wasn't it? No, the Yankees are going to have to wear that one. And the Mariners and Astros, if you let the plucky Seattle Mariners upset you with Justin Verlander and Framber Valdez at home in games 1 and 2, you're going to have to answer for that too. So the pressure is on the better teams here, or at least the teams with home field advantage. The wild card series, where we didn't even go to the road ballpark, the home team lost 3 of those 4.
I mean, that's why I like to say, Adam, baseball or postseason baseball is so unpredictable. That's why, especially in this case, because I was thinking about this earlier, specifically with just the Phillies and the Braves series, is if the Phillies get 1 of 2 in Atlanta and then they go back, because it's 2-2-1, right? Am I making that up?
Yeah, it's 2-2-1.
Okay, so let's say the Phillies get 1 game in Atlanta. They go back to Philadelphia, where they got Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Yikes, man. That, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, that would be a very bad situation for the Braves. But that being said, if they were able to beat Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom and Chris Bassett, anybody's fair game. Granted, those guys weren't 100%, but still, if you can beat those guys, you can beat anybody.
It's true. Anybody left can beat anybody. And the get-in price for Game 3 in Philadelphia, $300 last I checked, certainly rising now. Juan Diaz, disappointing season for the Mets, but you still feel in your heart Musgrove cheated. You can feel that way. That's why playoff baseball is great. I can't tell you not to feel that way. John Boy did a great breakdown where Musgrove did not go to his ear basically ever. So, if you were cheating, you would probably be sneaking a couple of touches, especially when the new balls came in play from going into foul territory. You would definitely be doing the old stretch behind the head and, oh, by the way, now I have to touch this baseball type thing. And Musgrove did, though, wipe his ear with his shoulder before the umps came out to check him. I don't know if you noticed that.
Saw that. Very, very interesting. Yeah. Hey, I mean, he was deemed innocent, so I guess we can't really. I mean, yeah, he was deemed innocent, so I guess I can't say anything really. But
deemed innocent. The spin rates were up for sure, but the spin rates were also up across the board in the playoffs so far. Makes you think maybe we're using a different baseball. I don't know, but I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying that the spin rates being up was not a Musgrove specific issue. But, oh boy, I cannot wait for these next series to really get going. Already 2 great games on now, 2 great ones tonight. Tons of action across the country. Division rivalries heating up. Miles Straw returns to the Bronx. The Guardians show the Yankees what they're made of. One hell of a division series on the way, and here come the CS and World Series after that. Then, oh, by the way, our bread and butter, the offseason. That's it for this edition of the Baseball Insiders. Robert Murray, thanks as always for joining me. I will be fantasizing about all those Astros resignations, so thank you for that as well.
Yeah, anything for you, Adam. But also, everybody, if you could please subscribe so we can continue to do this, that'd be very appreciated. And if you do, Adam and I will both love you forever. So thank you for that.
It's true. All you need to get our unconditional love is just clicking that subscribe button, tuning in every week. We'll be here for you. And we cannot wait to come back on Thursday when we'll know more about how these series are going to shake out. Already ridiculous. Nothing beats playoff baseball, except maybe the offseason and then maybe the regular season. Hey, baseball's just actually pretty great. We'll see you on Thursday.